Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. Time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress here. Ronald Wimberly joins us on Word Balloon. It is a pleasure, Ronald. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing good, man. I'm excited for this collection of your excellent webcomic, Gratuitous Ninja, GratNin.
Yeah. Thanks. It's been a long time coming. Had a decent decent amount of time to work out how to pull this together, and I'm really excited for people to see it.
And man, ambitious formats, both as a webcomic. Well, I mean, it is kind of traditional to do the vertical panel by panel swiping up and down, or up, I should say, I guess, webcomic. But now for the collection, a kind of accordion kind of fold up. I think of, I mean, I know others have done this and stuff. I don't know. It's funny. I've been reading interviews and watching interviews with you talk about. Initially, you wanted to almost like format it like a subway map.
Yeah.
And I was thinking of like Buster Keaton back in the day, that great visual gag of him opening the newspaper, and at the end, it's the size of like a bedspread, and it's covering him and stuff.
Right. Yeah. I mean, a great gag for film, but maybe a little unwieldy for reading comics. So we decided to go with something a little bit different. But I mean, I think this is a great way to experience the comic in physically. I had a blast kind of figuring out how to tell the story in the Infinite Scroll.
Yeah.
So like when it came time to figure out how we could put that in someone's hands, I had also a great time figuring out the best way to do it. We even thought of literally making a ninja scroll at one point, but
cool. Oh my God, that would have been fantastic.
I think, Josh was into that more than I was. Like I was like, I don't see myself reading a comic like this. Like I won't be reading my own comic because I don't think I could I would get a little frustrated after a while with that.
But again, I mean, I assume this is what the finished product will look like, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the box. And on the inside there's the comics. It's 8 episodes plus we have like we have a little Gaiden, a Ninja Gaiden, if you will, and some other goodies on the inside, collector cards and an actual map, because like I couldn't let go of the idea of the map. So like I'm playing out the narrative with all of these other aspects. It's like really trying to explore the story, with more than just like the actual narrative in the comic.
Absolutely. No, and I do love that you think about format as much as you do story. And I think that's self-evident in a lot of the releases that you've done over the last few years in particular. I give us the 10-cent tour on Gratuitous Ninja. What's the elevator pitch in terms of the story?
Oh man, what's the elevator pitch? Well, in a modern world, right? In a contemporary world, what use is it being a ninja? This is a story of 3 kids. It's a story of 3 kids who live in New York, who, when the local pacifist ninja clan, a clan that is completely over trying to use violence or even their ninja skills to influence the world, when they need to kind of step back into society, they need to recruit 3 local kids as young ninja. And this is the story of those kids trying to act in a way. It's kind of direct action, but it kind of goes wrong. And it's a little bit of their it's a lesson. It's a lesson on how to interact with the community in a way that's positive and not negative, but also with lots of violence involved. There's lots of fighting.
That's great. Well, we would hope so with a title like a Ninja in it and everything. Yeah. So that's cool. Here, a couple panels and scroll moments here from the first couple issues of the comic as it is online.
Yeah. These are kind of the there are no real villains in the story, but like I guess these guys are kind of the adversaries, right? Like these are the main antagonists. They're local guys who they're local hustlers who the GratNin end up having to face in order to, you know, like I guess protect their neighborhood, scare quotes. But they find that their approach to justice is a little bit basic.
Is I know too the backstory of this is the Gowanus section of Brooklyn kind of falling victim to imminent domain, and a lot of people,
Oh yeah, yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Dean Haspiel is a good friend, and
Okay.
were you at that studio too with?
No, I visited a few times, but I was never there. That's a whole squad. That's a cool group of people. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
I
a
have a
Santa
hard time working around other people. So
No, I love that, and also, I mean, and I also want to talk about this individually, but when you did Sunset Park too, kind of similar territory. I mean, more with gentrification rather than eminent domain.
I mean, New York is about it's about I don't know, things changing all the time, like the economic pinching that occurs here. Like you'll know the guys down on Gowanus, like they've moved a few times, you know, like they weren't always sure where they were gonna go. I think for me, living here for as long as I've lived here, I feel like I've always kind of been uh probably both, you know, definitely both the herald or precipitator of those changes, but also often sort of like victim of those changes. So like I think really all of my stories, if I think about it, like it always comes up. Even in Prince of Cats, it comes up. You know, like it's just part of the. I don't, you know, like I'm pretty sure you probably see it in any sort of environment, you know, in our country. But like I definitely experience it here, so like I put it in the stories. So yeah, it's a common theme in my work. It's not even. It's not. I don't know if it's like something I'm. Well, I'm explicitly doing it, but like you know, it'd be like not drawing cars on the side of the street. It's like
I get it. Yeah, man. No, you're facing it every day, and I mean, I'm in Chicago in the city, and I mean, and it's having its changes and stuff. But New York really is at warp speed compared to even other cities and stuff. I think LA is probably in a similar vein as well in terms of that. In fact, I was just reading an article. They were going back and talking about how and this is decades ago, going back to the 50s, but how Chavez Ravine, when they decided to build Dodger Stadium out there and stuff, how they displaced a whole Hispanic community and stuff. And yeah, it's really shitty out there, man. And unfortunately, you know, I mean, thankfully you've got your art to kind of point to the problem and also respond to it.
Yeah, like you know, I'm really interested in I guess, you know, GratNin has always been like Gratuitous Ninjas was a comic that I started like right when I was in school, right? Like maybe my sophomore, junior year of Pratt Institute for the Static Fish, which is the Pratt, sort of like the Pratt comic. And I guess it's like anything, the art is a place for me to kind of explore ideas. Some of the ideas are formal, so it's like when it comes to GratNin, it's like formally thinking about, you know, comics that involve some sort of an action or violence or violent conclusion. Thinking about like what that means, like trying to rethink about heroes, like how does justice work, you know, like you know, I think a lot of artists in the medium end up thinking about these things. So and the ninja give me an opportunity to do so. Also, there's a bit of an exploration culturally for me, like thinking about my own I was making fun of I was making fun of people the other day, but I'm gonna use the word now. My own sort of milieu, you know what I mean? Like where I come from, like what produces these certain aesthetic takes, like why ninja, you know, like um I'm exploring, you know, the weird way consumer culture shapes your identity and your tastes. There's a lot of stuff I'm exploring, and it's like, yeah, so the gentrification or eminent domain, like the capture of spaces, like public spaces, or even the extracting one private space into another, you know, like are all things that I kind of like question and ask and then write and draw, but I don't know if I come to any conclusions. Usually people just end up throwing smoke bombs.
I know early on you did do some Marvel work and things, and then of course Prince of Cats and Vertigo. Are those publishers too confined in terms of the box you're able to operate in? I mean, obviously, I think it's great. Anyone who can
Hmm.
cultivate their own audience and make their own stuff
Hmm.
is, I think, is the goal. I mean, hell, man, I used to be a radio broadcaster, and now I do this.
Wow.
So yeah, man.
I
I
know
mean,
that.
I always say this. Believe me, you guys are much more artistic than I am, but I always feel a kinship with
Yeah.
cartoonists in terms of, you know, the choices of what you have to do in the mainstream, and then also what you do to kind of serve your art. So,
Right, right. I
but yeah,
don't think
what do you think for comics and stuff? The big two.
Yeah, I don't think I ever had an opportunity, you know what I mean? Like, so, I never got a chance to really, make anything in that sense. Like, I worked as an illustrator, you know, like, I did some covers, I did some fill-ins, but, like, the funny thing is, even after Prince of Cats, like, you know, I was never really given an opportunity to write anything for the big two. So I think that's kind of, and I would have been interested in it at a point because like it's, you know, the characters and the ideas are so big and they're public, you know. Unfortunately they're private, but like they're kind of
I know, Jimmy.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they're in the public zeitgeist.
Right.
They are an easy
Mhm.
way to get into a subject as a protagonist in a subject. So I get it.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm interested in it like you know, so like maybe if we're thinking like micro macro, like there's a almost like a macrocosmic narrative call and response, right? Like so someone, you know, Schuster does a Superman or whatever, and then like someone else does a Superman, and someone else does a Superman, and someone else does a Superman, and like each one of those is in dialogue with each other, as well as kind of like a different window into how an artist views this sort of like the control, right? Like it's like you know, you know, if a standard, you have a jazz standard or something, right? Or like even if you have like three penny opera, you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
you know, you get up to Sonny Rollins doing, you know, his version of Mac the Knife, and it's like that's something that's very interesting to me. I would have loved to do something like that, but it just never worked out. Yeah.
Well, but then again, and yeah, I understand as far as DC and Marvel goes. I love that what you said about too, that the various artists are also kind of in dialogue with each other in terms
Mhm.
of different interpretations. That's that's fantastic. And I love your Mac the Knife analogy because you went to Sonny Rollins. In my head, I'm thinking of Bobby Darin,
Yeah, yeah.
like listening to the traditional way they did the thing and everything. So that's fantastic. I really do. I love that a lot. You know, I wonder, have you ever gone back to look at like in particular like Superman as we talk about him, the Silver Age interpretation. I love how, you know, the interpretation of art changes with the decades and with the culture. And now you look at back at those old 60s covers in particular,
Mm,
and even the stories, and everyone's like, oh, Superman was a jerk, or aren't these
mm,
goofy and stuff, but they were commenting
mm.
on modern pop culture in the same way that you're doing, your thing and everything. I mean, that's it's like, oh my God, Jimmy Olsen is a caveman beetle. And it's like, yeah, that's their way of kind of like dealing with what's happening right now and putting it in comic form and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if you ever examine stuff
Absolutely.
like that.
I mean, not really. Like the funny thing about, and maybe this is why I never got any work. Like I never, I was never, I never read a lot of superhero comic books. Like I never went very deep into them. I found some of the characters interesting. Like I would read, I remember having like a collection of the early Spider-Man, like the first run. Like they used to come out with those kind of like phone book editions, and I read that. Yeah, I read that when I was in school. The Dark Knight Returns I got into. Like, I mean, if there were things that were coming out when I was in high school, you know what I mean? Like I remember some kid had the collected Batman where the Joker beats Robin to death. Like I remember that was a big deal because they passed it around in school. And it's like I think they had like even a contest, like is he gonna live or is he gonna die? So I remember those things, but like I never really got deep into it. Like my buddy used to read a lot of superhero comics. I got into comics through manga and weird little and this Jordan Crane had this thing called Non that I got into when I was maybe like a senior in high school.
Okay.
Yeah, like those were the things that really got me, like Appleseed,
Sure.
Grendel. I got into Grendel the first time I saw it. Like Grendel was interesting because it was like a gateway drug to the weird indies, like the action type indies. You like different takes on heroes.
Absolutely.
Because it was like, oh, I'm gonna keep it a buck with you. I just didn't like a way. I remember, I think at the time, around that time, I remember there was like, it was before Bane or whatever came out, but like Batman was, and I just remember looking at those comics and being like, I don't like any of these comics. And then when I picked up Batman versus Grendel, I'm like, oh, this is ill. Like, I kind of like this though. This is strange. Like I like this Batman too. Like I like the way this guy's drawing this Batman. And then I read the comics, like, but I actually really like Grendel. Like, like Grendel is the one that I like,
Sure.
So, and I think that was kind of, at least for American comics, that was like kind of a gateway. So by the time I got to college and I'm picking up like, THB, I'm like, oh, okay, so
sure,
I'm there with it. Those were the things that I was most interested in. And I mean, it kind of imprinted on my approach to comics because like, just as like an auteur's medium, like
absolutely.
like either I would, if I was gonna work with a writer, it's like, okay, well, we're starting from the beginning together. You know what I mean? Like, and my interest in drawing scripts, particularly in the way, the editorial pipeline worked, completely vanished like pretty early in the process. Like I just couldn't see myself drawing like a monthly of someone else's script. It's particularly if I like I'm full of my own ideas. I'm like I can't.
Sure.
I couldn't do it. Yeah.
No, I get it. And here
Answer a question you didn't ask.
No, I love. Hey, you're making my job easier. Absolutely. I want to know. We want to know what you think. Absolutely. Arpad Lep. Anicetti said that about work for hire versus creator own. It's building on the mountain or tabula rasa. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
No question. And then again, this is great. And you are of the generation where the ambition is to make your own things, rather than I think the generations before you were, oh geez, man, if I could draw Marvel comics, that's the pinnacle, man. That's the top. And it's, I think, more important to feed these diverse ideas and also diverse art styles and stuff. I love what I've read from Lab as well. And I love this image. I really, really love this image. That's so fantastic. It really has that there's a good subversive kind of feel to it in a good way.
Do you know that where that comes from? I don't know. Have you ever seen this film Alphaville?
Yes. Oh, absolutely, man. I love it.
Yeah. When is it John Constantine is like walking in front of he's walking in front of a big poster, one of the first shots.
Eddie. Yeah, Eddie Constantine.
The Soviet era, like there's a
Yes,
big propaganda, like they're pushing a tank into the water. Like,
totally.
that's a it's referencing that
It's
that
the workers toppling
yeah
the the machine of the machine.
yeah
And hey, I'm a I think we all have like this love-hate thing about Disney because we've got the cartoon image and stuff, and oh man, this is so great. And
yeah
then how the recent bullshit they're dealing with in Florida and everything. It's like, yeah, a little bit more going on behind the curtain than
yeah
we
yeah
realize. And God, I was just reading, I think, an interview you did with the Comics Journal a few years ago about, again, the real plight of workers at the parks and stuff like
Mm.
that. And yeah, it's and I mean, I know the people that have worked there. Scott Snyder
Mm.
uh
Oh yeah,
was a Disney guy working there and
that
stuff.
makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, so no, it really very, very interesting. And again, I also again appreciate the format of Lab
Oh,
as
thanks.
well. I mean, that reminds me of when McSweeney was I think McSweeney was probably the first ones that I saw kind of flirting with doing like tabloid newspaper
Mhm.
and stuff. Did that inspire you as well? Or I mean, again,
Oh,
like in Chicago, I know New York has a bunch of free
right.
press and different size formats for both stories and art.
Right. I just recently got into the McSweeney stuff. Like I got one of the last ones, like a big, but yeah, I wish I had been like I not really, like probably closer to just regular old newspapers are what inspired me. Kind of like my original or my early relationships to the Sunday funnies, and that's kind of what really informed Lab. Also, like in New York, all of the odd format, like cool, magazines and things around, like, really influenced it too. Also, um, like I would be remiss not to mention like the Black Panther newspaper. Emory Douglas's work on that was definitely a big influence. Like I got some old issues of Interview magazine, like Interview
Sure.
magazine before it was like a magazine is kind of like a newspaper, right? So like those types of things are actually what really, influenced me. Like, man, bro, like I got so much even behind me here. I got like weird newspapers that just like this sort of thing. I don't know if you've ever seen this.
No.
Yeah. This is like a South African newspaper, like kind of a
Wow.
weird satirical, things like this really kind of are the things that influence me. I don't know. I just maybe so out of the lane that I missed a lot of the McSweeney stuff, but it's really cool though.
No, I understand. Absolutely. Well, again, I'm really glad to be part of this current generation that has gone beyond the traditional format of comics and do accept the different things. And also, God, I was watching your comic kayfabe interview with Jim Rugg from a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I can appreciate it. Jim's a friend. Can appreciate for both of you the toughness of finding some stores
Mm.
that are willing to accept the different format
Yeah.
stuff. And yeah, that's a real struggle, and it's a missed opportunity for the stores because guys like yourself and Chris Ware that do play with the
Mm.
format that way and really present comics, I think in a it's important for the physical product to
Mm.
have a distinction,
Mm.
I think. And again, I mean, hey, I've been reading comics for over 50 years, and I still love them. But again, I understand, I appreciate the convenience of digital, but also by the same token, I want something cool that looks nice on my shelf.
Yeah, it's a battle, like um I do appreciate sort of like the formal constraint of like of that American comic book format. I think that's cool. Like I think it's useful for comics of a certain type to always, like to stick to that standard. I think that makes sense. I think
Sure.
the retailers, if retailers kind of like the pushback from retailers in that regard, it makes sense, but it also feels like um the the formal constraints of one type of work are being imposed on to another, right?
Yes.
So, like it's just a matter. It's just commerce and art kind of like having their little slap boxing match. Like they're always going to, there's going to be give and take. But like at a certain point, yeah, these material constraints were economic. Like that's how we got that format to begin with, right? Like, there are all these different things that went into it, but like, yeah.
Well, they were built for a newsstand, model of business, and we've moved beyond that. I mean, that's the thing, and certainly stores are smart and buy the right racks to display and everything the traditional comics. But hell, again, I guess I'm lucky being in Chicago that we've got a nice group of stores that do appreciate the other formats and find ways to market those.
I think it's exciting, man. Like I would love for people to find my works, in any number of places. Like, and maybe the shape of it dictates where you won't find it too. You know what I mean? Which is like, so be it. You know what I mean? Like, but I think there's, I don't know. I'm not going to say there's space out there for everyone to do what they do. I think that would be naive, or like it would be disingenuous. But yeah.
No, everyone is fighting. You're right. I mean, it isn't easy. Everyone's fighting to have their stuff displayed. I got great comments here from some of the people. Let's see. Ramsey says, Orson Welles spoke to Peter Bogdanovich about not believing that there can be too much talking in film. Do you think comics has a to-be kinetic? I've got more from the talky early optic nerve than early image, for example.
I don't know. Like, do comics have to be kinetic? I think I'm not going to say what comics has to be, or like if I'm going to have a discussion about what comics has to be, I probably would have it by making comics, right? Like I would ask like what comics are by how I make them myself. I think that's a great question to ask oneself about producing comics of any type. Like for me, I would say no, but like that makes any number of questions you can have. It's like, well, do they have to be pictorial? Do they have to be mimetic? Do they have to be, if I were to think, yeah, I'm not gonna. That's like a whole conversation, but it's like thinking about like what is essential, or what is essentially what makes it a comic. Like I often thought about like, maybe an exhibition is a comic. You know what I mean? Like are the paintings on the wall, is that a comic? Like when you put two things next to each other in a room, is that also a comic? Like does it have to be bound somehow? Like I guess if you would say BD, like bande dessinée, it's like, oh, okay, that's right there in the name, right? But like the relationship between comic and like any number of things we call comics is completely abstract. Like it doesn't make any sense, right?
That would be interesting to do an exhibition and even and go actually tell a story with each individual painting or drawing. I think that's again, this is I appreciate that kind of thinking.
I think it's already happening. Like there are a lot of exhibitions I go to and I'm just like, okay, this is a story, and I think a lot of I think there are painters, artists, photographers who are thinking that way when they put together their exhibition. Like that's exhibition designers who are doing it. Shout out to Columbus Museum of Art. They have a lab exhibition up right now.
That's fantastic. Oh, good for you. That's wonderful. How long is that running?
That's going to be up, I think, till September.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
See, well, at least here in Chicago, we've got you've got that, and we've got at the Pritzker Military Museum, but it's cool. Bill Maudlin's Joe and Willie, those two soldier infantrymen, single panel comics that he was doing during World War II for Carson Stripe. Amazing.
Listen, Chicago,
this is like, I'm talking about something from 70 years ago, and you got your lab stuff going on, man. And I love that. this is why I love comics, man. It's time.
Yeah, man, it's exciting. And listen, in Chicago, you guys have no shortage of comic stuff. So
Oh, God, yeah.
I feel like the rest of the country is trying to catch up. Columbus has their own
Yes.
things too, but yeah.
Man, you mentioned Columbus, and I think of our buddy Tom Spurgeon, who.
Oh yeah, man, heartbreaking.
No kidding, great guy,
Yeah.
and that wonderful convention that he started up.
CXC, yeah. Tom was great, man. I just had started to get to know him, and that one was a tough one, Good guy.
Oh, that's interesting. Peter Velez wonders if certain churches' stained glass window depictions of the 12 Stations of the Cross qualify as comics. It certainly is visual storytelling.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think so. Definitely. Philip, I like that observation. Philip Brown, does being your own writer change the writing process or storytelling process for you? Is it more visual or storyboard based?
Yeah, it's not a case by case basis, but I do it depends on what the goal is, right? So sometimes I recently was working on a commercial job where I'm doing comics, and I wrote a script for, I was scripting out something for myself and actually for another comic book illustrator.
Okay.
And yeah, in that case, I went straight to the sketchbook, and kind of wrote the script because it was straightforward. It was almost like a gag cartoon. It's like you're doing something out of Matal Harlan or something, like some sort of like a Mobius type of thing. Like GratNin, yeah, when GratNin would be wordless, I would do that mostly starting with drawing. But say if you're looking at these strips, the GratNin from the box set, KGMR, that would start as like an outline,
Okay.
And then I would draw the pictures, and I would draw, I would draw directly onto the board. If you guys are patient, I'll show you something.
Please, that'd be great. And I should mention while Ronald is getting up that he is in the midst of a Kickstarter to fund GratNin as this collection from Beehive. And it's still about 2 weeks left in the campaign. So you should really go and check that out. And very easy to find. And yeah, man, help him out. He's still short of the goal, but doing good. It looks like, things are clipping along as far as
I'm confident we'll make it. So just to give you an idea of all right, so these are breakdowns. This is a script I did for Fred Carrasco.
Okay.
This is GratNin. So like the second half of GratNin is inked or drawn and illustrated by Freddie Carrasco. So here's an example of a script. You know
sure.
What I mean?
Yes. You give them the breakdown and everything of and then he does the finished work.
Yeah, and I don't know how Freddie works. He might work. I don't remember how he worked, but I started out in the process. I started out like this, right?
Yeah.
But by the time I finished, I was working like this.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So
very cool. No, that's seriously, man, that's amazing. And I really do appreciate that your style is out there because we need that. I want to talk about your animation work and also a few other things about the world of comics and also just kind of balancing the commercial work with the comic book stuff that you do. But let's take a quick break. We'll be right back. And we're back, everybody. There you go. Ronald Wimberly talking to me about Gratuitous Ninja, GratNin, which is coming out in a great accordion format from from Beehive Press, Beehive Books, and that's fantastic. Of course, Beehive Books also the home for a lab. You
Yes.
release those. Is that a yearly publication run?
Well, I mean, it was before the pandemic.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah.
we've
Jeez.
we've missed a year or so now, but we're ramping up. Once we close this, GratNin campaign down, we'll be ramping up, starting to produce the next issue, and I'm already kind of like thinking about, already got things in line in terms of what the theme is, and already talking to some artists, bringing on board, including some people who influenced me to actually start making comics. We'll have some as usual, we have a big generational split. Like, we like to get cartoonists that are just starting out, and we get some of the dusty old heads in there too. You know what I mean? Like, so we try to balance it out, because we kind of want the generations to talk, be in dialogue with each other. And, like, to be frank, like, not, it's really interesting because not everybody really vibes with everybody all the time. And to find them in the same paper is kind of an interesting thing. I have no pretense to some sort of liberal utopian forum of ideas battling each other. But that said, there are some diverse uh folks. The folks are diverse, I should say.
That's great, man. No, again,
Magazine diverse.
I mean, I'm a small press guy that always appreciated the different free papers that we got here in Chicago, and that collage of or collision of both old school people and fresh new talents and new
Mm,
voices and stuff. That's great. Hey, are you kidding? You know it right now, and it bums me out. The culture wars have invaded comics in
mm,
such a lousy way.
mm,
And I mean, I could have conservative friends
mm,
and we could all go to the comic conventions in all the big cities or CAFs as
mm,
well, and enjoy ourselves and just be like, well, at least we'll agree on this,
mm.
and all this stuff is cool. And unfortunately, the divisions are happening more and more. So I think it's important to kind of uh, keep all the different generations
Mm.
in communication with each other because that's the only way we're going to get along and understand each other.
I mean, my stance on that is no comment at this point. Like, I'm I I think often about what's the most useful way for me to get my point across. And at this point, like, I don't know, I've gone hard in a lot of different ways. And now I'm thinking about how am I going to play Go, you know what I mean, instead of checkers. And like, if people, part of it is like, I is my intent to produce work, and producing work is my intent to make art, to ask questions, um and even if I have an intent to maybe represent truth, or like thinking about truth, um is it useful? Like, what's more useful? Am I just going to like describe or perform my political identity, or do I want to create work that is somehow getting at something, that something true, you know?
Okay.
And like, and I mean, I guess that's what my ultimately, like, what my practice, where I'm going. I don't really, it's crazy because I don't feel like I produce very much, but I I'm not really interested in, particularly with comics or with art, and especially now with social media. I feel like artists are kind of pressed to constantly, people in general, but constantly make the world aware of what their stance is on something. Um, I mean, the people I know about, or the people who know me in a way that's like outside of my art, but like as a man, right? Like as a friend, as a brother, as a son. Um, they know kind of like plainly spoken what my thoughts and what even like my epistemal practice is, like what's its basis, like how do I discern truth, like how do I find meaning. The art, though, I mean, the truth of the matter is none of y'all are going to really get to know me except through the art, right? And maybe not even through the art, right? The art becomes something, uh, uh a way for me to reach out halfway, and then the rest of the world who wants to see the art will also reach out halfway and hopefully find some meaning in that. And I just don't find it useful to dictate. Yeah, look, if I'm gonna put out agitprop, I'll put out agitprop. But I'm not doing that with my comics right now. Because I just don't even think I don't even know if it would be effective. Like, why make a comic when a Molotov cocktail would do better? you know, I don't know.
Okay, I know it's fine, and I hear you in terms of social media, kind of, and the community within, uh expecting, demanding answers, and real hard issues and stuff, and yeah, it's I get it. I mean,
I think it's I think it's good to educate. Like I think there's a role to educate, right? Like I don't think I'm an educator though. Like I mean,
sure.
maybe
No, I
maybe
get
a
it.
little bit. I think with lab, a lot of it is I don't know. And it's lab is kind of for other artists, but like I think a lot of it is thinking out loud. You know, thinking
Yeah,
out loud and on
yeah,
paper in a way that's slow, right? Like it's slow, it's not fast, right? So I have to think about and articulate my ideas. It is a laboratory for ideas, right?
yeah,
And the more we do it, the farther we get away from issue zero, where issue zero was kind of didactic, right? Like, and it was really a plain expression of my political coordinates, right?
okay,
Where now, I'm more interested in like, let's do it in the art, like let's make art. You know what I mean? Like you don't look at like you don't look at like what's an example? You don't look at like a piece of postmodern artwork and say like, oh well, this is or brutalist artwork and say like, oh, this is a rejection of the Western world. This is a rejection of civilization, right? Not necessarily. You may feel it, right? The artist may probably definitely intended that, but like I think I'm more interested in working this way than being like, hey, here's my treatise on how my post-human treatise. It's like, I would write a book, you know, yeah, but I'll
no,
draw.
I hear you. No, I no, and I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. Ramsey says, for example, Bowie changing his sound and image
Mm,
so people can't pin him down to a particular aesthetic.
mm. Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, that's interesting. Um, that's one way of putting it. I'm not sure Mark Bolan would have agreed. But like,
Digital comics, are you getting what you want out of doing web comics and the like?
certainly I have fun. Like it was it was a very interesting behind the scenes business side of it was pretty interesting, but like which we do not have time to go into. But
And forgive me, I'll just ask very quickly, because I know you started at Starlight. I don't even know, is Starlight even around still or whatever?
yeah, I don't know if Stila is
Oh,
still around.
Stila, excuse me.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I don't know if it's still around. Like that was people are gonna think I'm an awful person, but it's kind of like piracy, right? Like I've been very lucky with Prince of Cats and with GratNin to have like corporate entity kind of pay for my production of the thing,
Yes.
and then I get it. I just get all the work back, and then like I put it out on my own.
Yeah.
I've been really lucky in that regard, you know.
But that's the fair
It's
way.
like,
I mean, that's the fair way it should be. Because I mean,
yeah.
Jesus, and now I'm blanking on his name from the old days of counterculture comics and stuff in the '70s. The guy that worked with Will Eisner, Dennis Kitchen.
Okay, yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, and Dennis is amazing. But really, I mean, his model, even back in the '70s, was we're renting. As a publisher, I am renting your work for a certain amount of time. You get it back. Do whatever the hell you want with it after I'm done renting it. And that's a real fair way of doing things. Fair and business are rarely in the same room.
Right. Yeah, they want to capture your creativity for as long as possible. And
Yes.
it's pretty wild, man. Like, and then you think about it, I don't know. It seems pretty dystopian, but like whatever. We're all living in a, most of us, we're doing pretty good. But it's still kind of dystopian in the sense that like, okay, so you've kind of captured someone's idea and you're going to make money off of it in perpetuity, and also perpetually generations of young artists are like kind of sacrificing their ability to produce on this altar, until like they age out of it, or like they become like less culturally relevant, and then you have another group coming in to kind of like, it's like in a weird sort of way some of these copywritten figures are like, they're like vampires,
100%. Yeah. No, you're fantastic analogy. You're absolutely right. Sucking the talent out of young, wide-eyed people, like I said, that are like, oh my God, I get to draw Spider-Man. This is amazing. Right. And they don't realize, the fine print.
Right.
Or also that they're not going to be the artists they were when they're young and vital and have the energy to go over the top and do the all-nighters and stuff. Again, man, I relate. Sadly, I was I was on the corporate tit for 30 years here in Chicago, man, as far as broadcasting and stuff. And it's really exciting to be able to do my own thing now.
Yeah. Do you have kids or you have family?
No, I'm single and happy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, I was just thinking like, well, here's, like that's the thing is like, there's also like material. We were talking about the superhero stuff earlier.
Yeah.
Those, like the difference in the generational, like the 60s, Silver Age, and even those artists, some artists today are real kind of like, look, I don't really care about Superman or Batman. Like, I'm just an illustrator and I'm getting my check. I get the vibe back then. Most of the artists were like that.
100%. Yeah, for real.
You're like, there's something interesting where today it's like there's almost like the corporate culture of like, oh, I'm happy to work here. Like, I'm part of this team. Like, I'm part of, this almost this cult. You know what I mean? Like, it's like how, if you work in an animation studio or like you work in, certain corporate jobs, even not that you work in an animation studio is a corporate job. There's a culture where it's like they create this idea of it's a family almost, or like it's almost a party, like a political party,
Sure.
And I feel like back in the day, the impression that I get, because I wasn't there, but the impression I get, like, reading Kirby talk about things like, no, this is a guy that was working, and he was out there to get his money, work his job, and like the ill thing is, even back then, it's like they were not unionized. They were each one for themselves, trying to like, get as much as they could from their labor, and like these companies just kind of had them over their barrel. It seems like, so.
No, I agree. Ramsey, great point. Another Kirby contemporary, Herb Trimpe. And he says the Herb Trimpe New York Times article about his last years in Marvel was very sad to read. No, man, that's the thing. And you mentioned unions. Got it. People would bring it up and, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea? Let's form a union. And it's like, well, there's the door. And let's welcome in the next generation, as you said, of wide-eyed young kids that'll do the job for less pay and aren't worried about insurance when they're in their early 20s. They're invincible. So you're right.
I want to say something before I have to go pretty soon. But
Oh,
like,
sure, man. Absolutely. Forgive me,
it's,
Ron.
it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. But like, I'm gonna put the challenge out, Dennis. If you're listening, we want to hear, or we want a comic, or we want maybe an article where you talk to us in detail about Bernard Krigstein and the attempt to create a union, cartoonist union back in the day. Because I think I feel every generation has tried it, or at least my generation did. I think
Yes.
probably the Image generation was they the whole forming of Image, I feel, was like an approach to the problem in a different way.
Yes.
It's almost like
Yes.
it's like the neoliberal solution, right?
Yes.
To a problem that we've all generationally have faced, going all the way back to the beginning of American comics.
Literally.
But,
yes.
Yeah.
No, you're 100% right. No, absolutely. Yeah, Ronald, I'm sorry. I don't want to keep you if you.
Yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, I gotta.
It's all good.
Hard out. Yeah.
No. Well, this is an excuse for you to please come back, because obviously I'd love to talk to you about animation and
for sure,
thoughts and everything. And
I'll have more to talk about later too in terms of animation. So it'll be cool.
that would be fantastic. Well, again, everybody, GratNin is an active Kickstarter, and
Yes.
still a couple weeks to go. Back it, because you're going to get a hell of a format from Beehive Books, this great accordion collection of the webcomic. And the webcomic is up there. I mean, you can also find it online very easily.
You can watch it. Yeah, it's free, like most of the stuff that I make. It's free, but we love when you pay for it.
Amen. Absolutely, man. So, hey, genuine pleasure finally getting to meet you and talk. And I hope we can do it again.
Yep. Take care, man.
All right. See you later. Ronald Wimberly, everybody. Thank you very much for watching. And hey, thanks for hanging out today. We're going to do more this week. I'm going to have another afternoon conversation. Mr. Skin is going to join me to talk about his website and his creative freedom, because he's much like the Oscars, although without the slapping. Unbelievable. Can you imagine that? Blew me away. But we're going to talk about his group of awards. Maybe he'll have some thoughts on the Oscars as well. And it's always great to talk to Mr. Skin. But really appreciated everybody watching today during the workday, and more Word Balloon Live coming this week. Thanks, everybody. Take care.